my way, oh, living my way, living my way, oh, living my way, oh. I have lived, I have loved, I have seen, and I've saw what's for me. Won't leave me. What's for me? Won't miss me. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh. So make you live your life, live your life, live your life, and make you do alright, do alright, do alright. We know they do all twice, do all twice, do all twice. So make you live your life, live your life, live your life, and make you do alright, do alright, do alright. We know they do all twice, do all twice, do all twice. Taking Jay me, I won't rap me Jay one. Taking Jay me, I won't beat me Jay one. Taking Jay me, I won't stop me Jay one. Taking Jay me. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh, lazy been my way, living my way. Oh.
I once heard, long ago, that the secret to life is to have no fear. No fear, no fear.
This is WHCR 90.3 FM. You're listening to PJ's show with your host, Pajani PJ Flurry. That was Mr. Bello with a track entitled Laissez-faire. We'll be listening to more tracks by Mr. Bello later on in the program. We're on with Brother Malachi, God Allah, our co-host for this segment.
Peace, Queen.
We're here with another one, and we actually have some good news to share. Our first story that we're going to cover is about elephants, and elephants in the savannah have been surveyed, like across the savannah. The savannah spans across a few countries, and these countries actually came together and did a survey, a comprehensive survey on the population of the elephants in the savannah. And it's been deemed that the population is now stable because elephants were endangered. Of course, people know that elephants are targeted for their tusks, but not only for that, they're targeted for other reasons. Even other parts of the world use them for labor and things like that. That's something I didn't even know about. I learned about recently. But a little bit of good news here that the population has come back, and that's due largely to the efforts of people, right, who've been able to do some, put measures in place to protect them and reduce um, the risk of them falling in the hands of those that want to harm them, and have brought that population back. So I'm really excited to hear that.
But you also have to mention that most of the ones doing the poaching are Europeans and Eastern Indians, are outsiders, not the indigenous Africans who do most of the poaching.
Yeah, or their presence kind of drives that in terms of there being a market for it. And as you know, I've seen ivory items and things like that, and they're beautiful, right? Ivory, these things are held at a higher regard, right? Because especially now you cannot do it. So things that have been made, out of pure ivory before. And you have to understand that the ivory is, even though it's beautiful and, things like that, this is an animal's tooth. It's actually their teeth, right? These tusks are their teeth. So if you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, it's coming from the natural world and, things like that. But we could do without. We could do without that.
Sure.
There's a lot of beautiful things that I don't, or there's people that perceive it as beautiful, but I don't. And I think the more that we kind of take a step back and look at things objectively, like how beautiful can a skin of an animal be for your rug? Like you literally took the skin off of another animal's back and put that on your floor.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did the study on whether or not we will be directly impacted if the population of elephants, like if they just go extinct, right? But we know other animals were directly connected to, like bees, like butterflies, the pollinators, and they're even endangered due to human activity. And we're talking about negative human activity because there is a lot of human activity, as I mentioned. Those that want to see the natural world flourish and have protected and dedicated their lives to preserving nature. But there are these other people on the other side of the fence that do things to harm. They do things that harm the natural world, and we're in danger of losing bees and butterflies. When we look at the relationship that we have with pollinators and how important they are to making sure that the vegetation that gives us oxygen, right, it stays healthy, it comes back every year, and things like that. So if bees and butterflies go extinct, we're not too far behind them.
For sure. It's like if you take one element out the ecosystem, it messes up the whole totality of humanity, of life itself beyond humans, because it's like all living matter is an aspect of the divine essence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, like the bees pollinate the plants, and the plants give us oxygen, and we give the plants dioxide. And if you take one element out of the ecosystem, all living matter will cease to exist. You know what I'm saying? So we have to respect all aspects of life. Real talk.
Yeah. Our second story, keeping with Africa, this is our theme for today's show. Want to also share good news in terms of South Africa's currency, their dollar, so to speak, called the Rand, R-A-N-D, experienced a significant boost in its value. So that's a big deal that an African nation's currency is rising. All the people that do forex trade, the currency exchange, foreign exchange, and things like that, probably very excited to see this. People who want to invest in Africa, this is good news to know where the different currencies are, and so some people kind of got that knowledge and that science of how to exchange currency, different currencies across the world to build a profit or even just have a better chance of doing business in a certain region if you do it in a certain currency. So it's really amazing to see a currency on the continent raise and raise in value.
Yeah, definitely. More countries in the motherland are being self-sufficient and self-determining, but they're not relying on outside currency, especially the U.S. dollar, because they understand that America and capitalism is based off blood sucking the motherland, off its natural resources. And a lot of countries in the motherland are becoming more aware of that and fighting against it and being more self-sufficient. And by doing that, it diminishes the need and the power of the outside currency, which comes from the U.S. and Europe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we got to take a look at, keep an eye on, like you're saying, right? We have to understand that there's not just one aspect of life. It's not just our one perspective on life. It's really holistic. There's different aspects to even just our own life. When we think about our personal finances, this is something that we have to be paying attention to, pouring positive energy into, and also as it goes up all the way to the global level, we have to understand economics. It's an important aspect of life.
Right.
And when we look at what's going on economically, there's shifts happening right now, right? And this is what's important too, because there's different lanes, right? There's the Wall Street Journal, right, that's talking about financial news, and then you have the New York Times, which is more politics and social. But both of those media outlets cover global. It's not just, New York. The New York Times, you'll find information from across the world because we're living in a global world, in a global society. We're no longer kind of like with these like hard borders or disconnected from people. So what happens around the world affects us and vice versa. And the United States has especially recent decades, has painstakingly taken measures to ensure that they remain the number one global superpower.
Right.
And but there's other countries that are coming up. We have this, I believe it's BRICS with an S at the end. So it's like Brazil is on the rise right now. They just elected a woman president. So that will be, no, that was Mexico. But I believe they have, women presidents in, Brazil as well. But I'll check in to see who's the president right now. Well, we got the Google at my fingertips because I do believe the president of Brazil is a woman right now, or it was just changed. Right. Okay. So the president right now is a man, Luis Lula da Silva, and I know I probably butchered that, but as good as it's gonna get. So yeah, but Brazil is on the rise. Their currency is on the rise, and it's like this, block. So the BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, And
Right.
once and South Africa. So that that makes sense now. So they added the S because it was usually brick, and then now it's bricks, and it looks like it's also expand into to the Arab countries in terms of Iran, United Arab, United Arab Emirates, and those countries. So it's expanded a bit, but the main countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And in terms of financial news and everything, they're the ones to watch. They're the next countries, the next superpowers to look out for, if we want to, frame it like that, in terms of media. But this has been going on for a couple of decades now, and even more so now. They've become extremely powerful. Their economies are growing. I heard recently China's on a little bit of a decline, but of course they suffered a lot with the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So it's to be expected. But these countries were usually on the bottom, especially when you think about places like India, right? And to see that they are a part of an economic bloc that is growing and maybe can contend with the status quo that's been in place for many decades now. So it's something interesting to watch. Another thing that I encourage people to read up on, get more knowledge on, not just the forex traders, which is still good, because if you do get into forex trading, you'll see all of this, that it's not just a little economic bubble. It's not just about the dollar, especially now. It's not just like all about the dollar. I remember before, like when we were growing up, if you traveled, you can take U.S. dollars anywhere. And there's been countries that's like, you know what? We're not actually going to accept that. You're going to have to go to the exchange and exchange U.S. dollars for our currency. So a lot of things have changed, and this is something so important as we progress. Of course, now there's cryptocurrency thrown in the mix, so there's a lot to understand about currency, because currency is also a commodity. It's literally a product, and that's why cryptocurrency is a product that's being sold and traded. And it's the same thing. Currency is also sold and traded. The banks do forex trading on a major level, on a bigger level, but it's all, we can always affect the microcosm in the macrocosm. That's what I always, believe anyway.
That's real talk. I would like to add as well, along with what you was mentioning, that people should also research history, because we have to understand how is it that these countries are becoming so-called superpowers, right? With less than a century ago, they were nowhere near that, all right? Or a little over a century ago. So the Berlin Conference came when Europe decided how they was going to chop up Africa and the motherland for its natural resources. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't a mistake. That these other countries became superpowers after that. So it's good for people to also do research on history to understand how we are where we at now, because things have not always been this way.
Right. Well, with that, brother, I give thanks for another very important conversation, international, a lot of things going on in the world. Stay tuned. I'll play some music and we'll be right back. Give thanks, Brother Malachi, God, Allah.
Yes, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Continue success and peace and prosperity.
Peace and prosperity. This is WHCR 90.3 FM.
try me. Material things to be by me. I'm a stand on, no, they try me. I'm a young goose, stand behind me. Yeah, I'm a win the Grammys. I should share for my family. What's in my ball from Miami? Life is not changing, understand me. Yeah. And when I say he's the go-go, you should understand, so don't do that. I never change upon my real ones. Even though some attention on the real one. Now when I stop, he's the KK. Everything that I say is only done. I get to plenty mouths to feed now. Along by me, help me see the real ones. When you try me, material things to be by me. I'm a stand on, no, they try me. I'm a young goose, stand behind me. I'm a win the Grammys. I should share for my family. What's in my ball from Miami? Life is not changing, understand me. Yeah. Evidential. These people like psycho mental. Melodies where I sing from the mental. Rolex on the wrist, presidential. And now that you just a little low. Taking all my chips, get the peso. Until the back, I pass pero. Until the mata, pass pero. And when I say it's the coco, you should understand, say, oh, the young down. I never change upon my real ones. Even though some attention on the real one. Now when I step, it's the KK. Everything that I say is so the down. I get to plenty mouth to feed now. Along by me, help me see the real ones. Why you try me? Material things don't be by me. But my stand on, no, they try me. I'm a young goose, stand behind me. Yeah. I'm with the Grammys. I should share for my family. Once in my ball from Miami. Life was not changing, understand me. Yeah. Life was not changing, understand me.
Welcome back. This is WHCR 90.3 FM. This is PJ's show, and I'm your host, Pajani PJ. Again, that was Mr. Bello with a track entitled Level. We are joined by OGUTU, who is the founder of Safari Yangu, a community group that is focused on immigrant issues and also promoting the culture of Africa and cultures around the world as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick.
Thank you so much, PJ, for inviting me for this show. And
You're very
congratulations for starting this show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So give us a little more information about yourself and also Safari Yangu.
So I know your show is short, but my story can go for 12 days. But I'll try to minimize. I was born in a little village called Ombei in Kenya. Kenya is in East Africa. I came to the US a few years. I went to school right here in New York City, and we started an organization on campus, which we moved into the community. And the organization is called Safari Yangu, which is Swahili for out of my own personal experience coming from my village, going into the big city, Nairobi, and coming to the US, and also listening to different stories of different people from different places, not even just different countries, but even from different towns, and coming to New York or coming from Florida to New York, California to New York. All those stories matter. And there's a way all those stories meld and gel into one and make us, especially New York, such a beautiful city that is a melting pot of different personal experiences. And moving around, I really did not see a lot of platforms that was available for especially Black immigrants to share their stories. And I thought probably I could also participate in enhancing and creating more platforms for Black immigrant stories. because as we share more of our stories, then people discuss in the public discourse and we get noticed. And that is very important.
It's Safari Ango magazine, and one of the first times you introduced me to it, you explained to me that there was a young lady that shared her story, and her story was picked up by BBC.
Yes. So I just want to explain. So for Yangu, we pursue our mission through different sub platforms within the organization. We do have a YouTube channel. We do have a magazine. We have storytelling forums where we invite live audience to listen to stories of immigrants from different places. And just before the pandemic, we also set up a market where we are able to sell our wares, we bring different cultures together under one physical roof. And it was also a community center where musicians were coming, spoken word, you know this, you've participated in this. We were also holding community events. Even NYPD used to come and make community announcements at that same place. Then recently, we've also started an exchange program between Africa, the Caribbean, and the USA. I hope I'll be able to talk more about it later in the program. But you've specifically asked me about some of the stories that we share, especially the story of a lady called Brigitte. Brigitte is a young girl who was trafficked from Togo into Ghana at the age of 7 and married off to a 60-year-old man in Ghana. So after a few years, a nonprofit organization saved her. And actually, she was adopted by an American family, and she came to the US. She went through school, and she got her master's degree. And when she saw what Safari Yangu does, she did approach us that, hey, I would like to share my stories with the world. And that's exactly what we did. And exactly at that time, we didn't even have a camera. So I recorded that story on my cell phone, right? And then we uploaded it on our platform, and BBC saw it. BBC contacted the girl. They did a whole big documentary, 45 minutes documentary, which has won awards in different parts of the world. Brigitte now travels the world. In Europe, she's lived in Europe, in different parts of Africa, and in the US. So we see the impact.
Yeah.
So Brigitte is a very good example that nothing is really too small. Just do with the resources that you have. You never know what's going to happen. So it also tells us how important our work is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, storytelling is so powerful. We all have journeys, right? We all have a story to tell. I think that's the most important thing. But when you're coming from a perspective that's so complicated, right? There's a lot of complicated things that happen in this world. And I believe that sharing your story could sometimes be like a healing process as well.
Definitely. There's a story that we really did not put in the magazine, but we covered it on our social media, of a man who traveled from Ghana to the US. He spent about 7-8 months on the way. He had to fly to Southern America. He had to take a boat. He walked through the forest and valleys. And many of the folks that he started the trip with in Panama, most of them died. Yeah, so whenever we see people crossing the border, maybe there are 200 or 300 of them, thousands of them have died. But when you listen to his story, why he left his country, it is really heart-wrenching. We are always very quick to blame the immigrants who come here, but we never actually go back to find out the reason why somebody would leave his home, his family, his village, his people, the environment that he's used to, the food and everything, to come to the United States. I think it is always very important that we really need to go back and look at those stories. And that's some of the work organizations like us and many others are doing.
Yes, it's really amazing work. And you have an amazing story too. I know you kept your intro very short, but I know that you have a book that, hopefully will come out, right? You wrote it, And I think the first time you wrote it was 600 pages, maybe more.
Yes, it's been a long story, and this is something a lot of people have been asking me whenever I had a chance to speak and interact with people. I say like, "Hey, what's the name of your book, or where is it?" I say, "My book is not out yet. Um, I've done a huge draft of it, and I've been adjusting it over the years. Is an 8-9 years labor. Okay, that is still going on, but we hope we'll be able to leave the labor ward soon and release it to the people." I was trying to make my experiences as detailed as possible, because sometimes our stories has been misrepresented over centuries. So if you leave a gap in your story, somebody will come in and fill it for you. So you try to leave as few gaps as possible. That's why this book has really taken me so many years of writing and editing, and the experience continue each and every day. And I say like, okay, I need to add this as well, right? For example, COVID experience was a completely unique experience. We saw how our cultures, how even Black people treat the dead, how we bury our people, that went off the roof. And I saw my friends, people were working with, even at the market, my neighbors, my immediate neighbor died of COVID. People I knew personally died, and I saw how their bodies were treated. We do have a culture how we treat the dead, but when COVID came, that went off the roof.
Wow.
Yeah, so these are some of the things that I wanted to add to the book. And I also experienced that I also spoke to funeral homes and morgue workers, and they're really expressing the pressure and the volume of work that they had at that time, that most of the things that they would do before COVID, they just couldn't do it. And many of the bodies we've been told are missing up to now.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of strange things definitely that happened.
Yes,
So,
and I wanted to capture that in the book. Although some people are telling me, "Oh, you can have that as a separate book," but they're on my personal experiences, and I know we have also been disadvantaged economically, socially. So somebody buying 2 books might be a little bit more challenging than buying 1 book. Why don't I just put the entire story in 1 book, so that somebody looking like me who can afford maybe $20-30 buy 1 book and get the entire story, instead of them buying 2 books?
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And it is such a powerful thing to
Yes.
just really be vulnerable, because sometimes you might see someone, you don't know their story, you don't know where they've been. And so it's really important that we have these forums to exchange, even like reading and things like that. You're coming from a college campus kind of culture where, people are reading and things like that. But we know just in general, this country, it has fallen behind in terms of reading because there's so much video. So we really, applaud people who are writing and encouraging and having material for people to read. So it's really important. So I appreciate you and all the other writers. Safari Angle, like I said, I've written, have interacted with the other staff and people that make Safari Angle magazine happen. So I'm very proud of that work, journalistic work and things like that. It's really good. So like your organizing work, it has a lot to do with that, sharing the stories, writing and sharing the information that way. But also, Safari Angle and yourself have been promoting travel and trips, tourism to Africa as well. Tell us about that.
Yes, definitely. So before I go into the travel part, which is a very interesting part, let me just explain a little bit something about the magazine, which I think your audience, deserve to know, right? When you talk of Black immigrants, when we started the work, we did realize that we cannot do this in a silo of just Black immigrants, because there's a lot of there's a lot of issues, community issues that Black immigrants and African Americans share. The discrimination, how they're treated in the community. So we may all be Black, but we have different cultures. So we wanted this magazine to kind of be a bridge between those two cultures where we learn from each other. So we try to encourage the writers to be African Americans and the subjects to be Black immigrants. So we do connect the two. We identify an African American and a Black immigrant. They can meet in a restaurant, share stories. They can meet in a house. They can meet via Zoom or via phone, and they share their own personal stories. And the African American will write the story and we publish it. So we really try to encourage that. And from that interaction, we've realized there's a lot to be learned and a lot to be shared. And that's how we build power within the Black diaspora community. Whether you're from the Caribbean, from USA, from Brazil, or from Africa.
Yes. I'm so glad that you brought that point up, because that's a lot to unpack there, because of the strained relationships for so long between African Americans, and I would even throw in there Caribbean Americans or Caribbean people, and the Africans born in Africa, right? But they will call, the motherland, born in the motherland. And so one of the things that we've spoken about that before, you it's a kind of a funny thing, but you say you didn't know that you were Black until you got here.
Definitely.
Like that kind of terminology of like Black.
Yes. Let me just mention that when I arrived at the airport, and whoever was supposed to pick me really delayed and did not turn up, and I was getting a little bit worried, or what's going to happen. I've never been to the US before. I only had $38 in my pocket. What am I going to do? So one of the airport staff at JFK, one of the members, he said, like, "Oh, don't worry. This is New York. We've got different cultures. If you go to a place like Bronx, you're going to find people looking like you. We have a lot of Black people in the Bronx." And, I had her speaking to other people trying to, in the effort of trying to help me. She was describing me as a tall Black man. That was the first time somebody was trying to describe me on a phone or trying to introduce me by my skin color and my That was the very first time at the airport, the very first day I arrived. That identity, that was the first thing I got when I arrived here. I said, like, oh, okay. She just reminded me I'm Black. I didn't know. So, and that's something that, as I continued to travel in the US, interact with more people, that's an identity that almost became very important, and it sticks with you. And you try to tell people that, hey, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm a human rights activist, I'm all these other things. You can use them to define me, but the Black and height comes first.
Yes. Here, absolutely. They will say, oh, the light skin, the dark skin, a lot of it is centered around our skin color. For sure.
Skin color. Yeah. So skin color becomes a big aspect of identity in the US. And that's something that this country is really struggling with. I hope and pray that at some point it's not going to be the case. It's a daily struggle. Everybody has to contribute to that struggle, and we see where it takes us. So, so that was some of the experiences that I've had. I've had also some beautiful experiences in this country. I don't want to, say, especially in New York, you get to eat food from everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Right. If you want Asian food, if you want food from Brazil, from Europe, you get it. Yes. And even if you want African food, there's West African, East African, South, Central. I mean, there's a large amount of different foods, restaurants, clubs, communities that you can travel to. For example, if you take one train line, you can start in one community. By the time you're getting off the train, you've passed how many different communities? Yeah.
Yes, it's a very unique place. Like, I don't think there's many places around the world like that, like what really New York City brings together. And some people have called it a melting pot. Along the way, people say, you know what? It's not a melting pot. It's actually more like a salad bowl, because we're all in the same bowl, but each thing is kind of like still kind of separate.
Yes.
Like the lettuce is over here, the cucumbers, the tomatoes over here.
You kind of have to use your fork to look for it.
Right, exactly. and I think that is a better description. We would like it to be a melting pot. That would actually be great. Not to say that people would lose their identities, but we would be more cohesive, more appreciative of each other. And so, yeah, the struggle continues. And definitely going back to the tourism helps bring a different perspective to different places, especially Africa, where for a long time, I mean, some barriers have been broken in recent years, but especially from when I grew up, I had the perception that Africa was nothing but like this wild jungle place, with wild animals and people living, solely on the land in huts and things like that, which is a beautiful way to live. We just never knew that real development was happening.
One of the programs that we introduced this program about 2018. And what inspired about this exchange program was the market we had in Harlem on 125th Street called Harlem Artisans Market. Right. Most of the sellers there were African Americans and Caribbean Americans and Africans from Africa, immigrants who are here. And most of the people, when they were coming to buy most of the items there, they would ask, where is this one from? What is it made of? Though I'm a little bit more inquisitive, they wanted to know the product and the story about the product. That's when it clicked. And I told them, like, hey, this is from this village, this is from this country. And say, oh, I would really like one day to go and travel and see. Then, like they say, a light bulb came to our mind. I said, okay, maybe we can get a few folks who are ready to travel. We can take them to the villages and have that experience of these products being made, right? And that's when we started the exchange program between Africa and the US, where we would take groups of people who, mainly African Americans, but it is generally open, we'll take them to different countries in Africa. They tour, they learn the history. If you're also interested in relocating, we'll teach you, we'll expose you to professionals in those countries who will advise you on how to actually relocate and settle there or retire there. Of course, we also have a bit of fun. We take you to the clean, nice beaches in Kenya and other countries. Enjoy it's called the Big Five: the elephants, the giraffes. We would have game drives. We'd also go to the villages and communities. We enjoy the dances, the culture. Talk to government officials. And our first experience was amazing. Then we decided, we are going to do this thing annually, and we are going to go to different countries. In the process, we are also bringing talent from Africa to come to the US especially during summertime, to perform. So we brought musicians, we brought painters, we brought bead makers who come here, and some of them have even performed on the streets of New York. We've not been able to get them to perform at this outside the State Building, but we got them to perform in Brooklyn, right on the streets, entertaining people on the streets. They performed in Ohio, in Atlanta, and in DC. So this is something that we do every year. And our next trip is going to Kenya and Uganda. And then there's a special group that wants to go to Rwanda. We are working on.
What would you say You're Kenyan, so I'm sure that you'll have an answer to this question. What would you say, the highlight of Kenya?
Oh, man. Okay, I'm from Kenya. So, it might be a biased way of looking at it. But, when you look at the geography alone, let's forget the history, the geography of Kenya, you get a little bit of Arizona, a little bit of Michigan, a little bit of Pennsylvania, a little bit of the open fields like in the Midwest.
Mhm.
In that one country, you get a little bit of that. Then you also get a little bit of the clean beaches that is on the coastline of Indian Ocean, right? Then you go to the islands where we plant the world famous tea, which all other countries use to blend their tea and call them English breakfast, while it is actually Kenyan tea, right? You're going to see all that where we plant the wheat and the coffee, right? Then the game drives is magical. We have the only national park in the world, which is only 5 minutes away from downtown. You drive 5 minutes from downtown, you are in the middle of a park. You're able to see elephants, giraffes, lions, buffaloes. Only 5 minutes drive. And you're able to see that. There's no other city that is around a national park like Nairobi, Kenya, right? And then when we go to the history part, I don't know how many minutes you have, PJ, but I can tell this story until tomorrow. If you go to the historical aspect of it, right? A lot has been spoken about slavery and the transfer of humans from Africa to the Americans. There are also transfer of humans from Africa to the east side, that is the Middle East, places, the present countries of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq, and those other places. On TV, we see all these black Saudis, black Iraqis, black Qataris, and, and you wonder, where were these people from? Those people are from Africa. And what people do not know, that more black people from Africa were transferred from Africa to the East more than the number of black people were transferred to the Americas, to the Caribbean and America. And it started way before the transatlantic slave trade, way before, because the Arabs went into Africa before the Europeans.
Oh.
The Europeans discovered Africa when they started trading with the Arabs, and Arabs were now telling them the stories of Africa. Then they realized, oh, okay. So then they came straight after listening to the stories of Arabs when they were trading, because Arabs started trading with Africa way, way before, many years, like 500, 400 years ago, right? And they even came up with a unique language. That's the Arab and the Bantu of Africa formed a new language that never existed before, and that language is called Swahili. And Swahili, Kwanzaa is based on Swahili, for those who don't know. Yes, Kwanzaa is based on Swahili. So that is almost the authentic African language that we can speak of. Apart from all the different languages we have in Africa, that's a very uniting language, because it has got almost 60% Bantu, which is the largest community in Africa. Yeah, so when you travel to Kenya, we've got physical, historical sites you'll be able to see, like a place called Fort Jesus. So I would really call that a highlight. You'll be able to see how different powers from the Middle East, is called the Omani Arabs and the Portuguese, the British, fought, and they called our country's protectorate. We've got all those buildings and sites. You'll be able to see where the slaves were kept before they were shipped off. And there are also historical sites that were showing that Africans were business people and they were trading with Arabs before the Europeans gave the Arabs the idea of slavery. And then the Arabs just expanded that trade. Yes. So
well,
that's something. is not well known in the USA.
You know, it's so funny. I think there's a lot of things that happen in history that people don't know about, just because it wasn't documented in a certain way, and some things got lost in translation or changed outright. I've been hearing a lot of people saying like the transatlantic slave trade was like even a myth, like that never even happened. And the melanated people that are here, like always been here, or like a very few number of people came over the transatlantic. I think once, you know, things happen in the past, especially in those times, there's limited ways to document things, so it's open to speculation. And so there's all these varying, you know, storylines and historical accounts that are coming, and it's a little confusing, really. But I think there is a lot of evidence, especially when you go to Africa, right? There is evidence where you actually can see where ships came in, where people were captured and held, and then actually shipped out.
That's true. We may never know the exact stories, but Black people or African people are very oral. So we passed on these stories from generation to generation from our evening class. I call them evening classes. When you've already worked, and in the evening you sit around a fire, and you'll be sharing these stories with the young ones. So that's how we held our that was the structure of our education system over centuries. Having evening classes. So, like, for example, a lot of people don't know that about 300 years ago, the Chinese came, and the sailors came to Africa, and they had this huge boat, but they didn't have communication with back mainland China, and their boat had a big problem and could not go back to China. And they just decided to settle in Kenya. And there's a large community of Chinese people who came to Kenya 200, 300 years ago and mixed with the locals.
Wow. See, that's even another thing, chicken and the egg, because even with your facial features, with your eyes, and people from other people from Kenya, you can really see these slanty eyes.
Yes. So I think there's one researcher who went and did some DNA test in a certain area, and he took it to China, and Chinese people were disputing this over the years, right? But when that DNA evidence came out, they started accepting it, and I think they organized some scholarships of people in the community to go to China and study, right?
Wow, that's amazing, because the other information was that originally the people of that area where China, modern day China is, actually, like I would say, like dating like prehistory, when people were writing things down and documenting these things, it was actually melanated people that were there, so originally on that land. And they say a few different areas also, like across Asia, like when you look at India, and they have the untouchables, and the people's skin there are very, very dark. And even like just certain parts of China, certain parts of Japan, the samurais, there's some evidence there that those people were melanated and maybe came originally from different parts of Africa, and that's even how those lands got populated. I mean, we know that all life started in Africa and branched out, so we're all one.
There's a whole lot of evidence. So that's the beauty of these trips. You come and see. You are able to observe in person, to touch and feel, the stories. So the stories that you hear on radio, on TV, you read on books, you are able to actually go and touch it and see it and take pictures and bring that memorabilia back at home to share with family and children. It's a beautiful thing when you travel and take pictures, you come back and share with family back here in the US. And there's always a lot of excitement on people want to travel, and what they say. And we've had people going back with me and say like, hey, Nick, I want to go back again. I know I've traveled, but I didn't have enough time.
That's amazing. So how do people get in touch with you, find out more about the trips, and actually be able to book and go?
So you can email nho2106@columbia.edu. We still use Columbia because Columbia has been housing our organization, for a long time, and we really appreciate them for that. They've been supporting us since 2017 when the idea started on their campus. So we really appreciate that. You can also email nicksafari2020@gmail.com. That is nicksafari2020@gmail.com. You can also call or text this phone number, 347-337-4479. 347-337-4479.
Okay, wonderful. But thank you so much, Nick. It's been an amazing conversation, delving into some important. It's been an amazing journey, being a part and seeing Safari Yangu kind of like just progress. And
thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I just want to let people know that our next trips will be Rwanda, Ghana, Senegal.
Oh, wonderful.
2025, yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much.
This is WHCR 90.3.
So she wants snap my photo. You say she wants check my dodo, baby. But we gotta keep it on the low. So we gotta keep it on the low. Yeah. So she wants check my dodo. You say she wants snap my photo. But we gotta keep it on the low. So we gotta keep it on the low. I say I did it for your back. If you need for emergency, see I don't go for your hand. I say I did it for your back. If you need for emergency, see I don't go for your hand. To make it stop to the fun, make it go my body, oh. Tonight your backside, your body, they kill my cardio. It's been a long time coming, I've been waiting for your body, oh. And I know if it's a shot, make it go my body, oh. You do me cardio, oh, oh. With this your body, oh, oh. You do me cardio, oh, oh, yeah. You do me cardio, oh, oh. With this your body, oh, oh. You do me cardio, oh, oh, yeah. When you think they come my way, when you think they come my way, my baby, oh. Not only you pick your my grace, not only you stop my grace, oh. When you think they come my way, when you think they come my way, my baby, oh. Not only you pick your my grace, not only you stop my grace, oh. I did it for your back, oh. If you need for emergency, oh. See I don't go for your hand, oh. I say I did it for your back, oh. If you need for emergency, oh. See I don't go for your hand, oh. Yeah.
Someone call 911 419, she got me so hard at the party. Look what you done started. You got me on fire. Yeah, you emergency. You got me on fire. One sorrow, minita. One sorrow, wasita. One sorrow, minita. One sorrow, wasita.
I did it for your back, oh. If you need for emergency, oh. See I don't go for your hand, oh. I say I
I there for your back, oh. If you need for emergency, oh. See, I don't go for your hand, oh, yeah.